Quiet on set. Cue recording. Hello, listening audience, and welcome to this. I'm not quite sure what this is. This follow-up on yesterday's session, Deep in the Dark. Today we are here with What You Found There, because, somebody did something I wasn't expecting, and I had to improvise. And it has given us an opportunity for a very fun little lore piece, and Fletch is being very indulgent of me. Say hi, Fletch. Fletch is
Hi!
wonderful, you guys. We love Fletch in this house.
I'm glad, and we love you in this house, my dearest Gale.
Oh, you.
You. Uh, I'm here to be the peanut gallery tonight. Or, I
Yes.
guess, more accurately, Camille's here to be the peanut gallery tonight.
Yeah. Yeah, he is. Because this lad, brought home a funny little souvenir from his field trip into Inkspace.
Yeah, he lived up to his name and stole something which was not intended to be stolen.
Indeed. He shoplifted from the Inkspace gift shop. It's fine.
It's fine. You can tell that living around so many thieves and phantom thieves has gotten to him.
I think he deserves just a little bit of enrichment.
As a treat.
I'm so sorry if the garage opening and closing is picking up on recording. I did not plan this very well.
It's
Um,
okay. I don't hear it on my end, so worst comes to worst, we can use mine.
we probably will have to use yours. My mic is being stupid sensitive right now.
Me too.
Um, and my parents are talking in the background. Kill me. Anyway, um, we start with the first night back from Inkspace. That first night, when you bring it home with you, it slips your mind. A lot has happened. There's a lot of information to process, and you forget to take the mirror out of your pocket. In truth, it's a question of if you even realize it was there, that you brought it with you from out of the dark. But it was, in fact, there, sitting in your coat pocket. It was close at hand when you went to bed that night, and when midnight arrived, unseen by anyone, the mirror, removed from its original context, in its confusion, reached out. A light through the darkest hour of night, trying to reconnect to the shadowed place from whence it came. And it did. Through you. You dreamed of a seemingly endless spiral staircase, stretching up and up into the sky, twisting away into nothing. You dreamed of endless corridors, of nondescript, ghostly doors, impersonal and unremarkable, the remnants of the unlucky, those who lost themselves because there was no one around to save them. You dreamed of those stairs, cold and sharp-edged and slippery, nothing to hold you on them but your own determination to move forward, nothing to keep you from falling right over the side as you go up and up and up. You dreamed of the transmission point, the mirrored platform in the sky, but you saw it then as it appears to those who belong here. No longer vivid and bright, no longer shining glass hanging from silvery chains. Open frames leading into darkness, figures passing by, seemingly always in the corners of your vision. Different colors, different brightnesses. Not all souls are made equal, after all. Some shine bright while others are dim. Some are defiantly vibrant while others mute themselves for the comfort of others. Some are wounded by darkness that cracks their guard, puts gaps in the armor of their heart, easy places to sink your fangs into, cracks through which you can grow. Some shine so brightly, so intrinsically luminous that to look at them aches, and you know that to touch them would burn. You know this, and then you wake up.
Um, kind of just is sitting in there in the morning, like, okay, the fuck was that? This is not the first strange dream adventure he's been on. Um, so he knows a bit better than to just cast it aside as him thinking too much about ink space and about that situation.
Mm-hmm.
So he sets up, and it's still a bit too early for confirmation, especially since not everyone really shares the attitude towards dreams that he and Leo have per se. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
After all, many kind of just write it off and think of it as a fun little quirk of the mind. Camille, however, holding on to the memories as tight as he can, pulls out his notebook and starts to write down everything he saw to the best of his ability. Because if he just sits on it and waits, it's going to fade.
That is how dreams work.
That truly is how dreams work. So he's probably not going to mention it just yet, but I feel as he reaches into his pocket for a pen, he his fingers bump into the cold glass of the mirror, and he realizes, oh shit, that's real.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, he did not expect that to come back with him.
No, no, he didn't.
So he pulls the mirror out as well as a pencil and, determined to not get distracted further, writes down everything as best as he can recall it before he turns his attention to the mirror. Because that's new. And if there is something going on, then perhaps the mirror has something to do with it. After all, it did serve as a portal out of ink space when it was there.
Indeed. It doesn't take him long to figure out what he has. A dream like that is, of course, an unusual occurrence, and it reminds him of the presence of the mirror he took from Inkspace come morning. Once he's found it again, the dots are easy to connect, and the hypothesis is, mercifully, easy to test. He tries keeping it around, tries falling asleep with the mirror in hand. It doesn't work in the daylight, unable to pierce that veil in the hours of the blinding and burning sun. But each night you fall asleep with it. At midnight on the dot, your dreams shift and twist, and you find yourself in that dark place again. Wandering those corridors, more a ghost than your design in that place ever made of you. You scale the steps one night, counting them, a number you forget come morning. You watch the servant for a few, wandering the same as you are, that burning ball of amber flame from their wrist, checking each door in turn, tracing skeletal white chalk hands over empty door frames. Their ring of keys dangling at their waist, moved through the world by golden strings, a marionette navigating the sets of a puppet theater. You try to go through the empty doorways. There is nothing for you there, and you wake short of breath, with tears in your eyes. You try and send your thoughts through the floor, but with no specific target, you become lost in that sea of black and color all melting and streaming and swirling together like the colors of an oil slick. You drown. You wake up feeling sick. But it gives you an idea.
That it does. Because Hill is nothing if not determined. And as these last nights have proved, dying, or quote unquote dying, as he dreams in ink space, doesn't actually seem to leave any ill effect on him in his waking hours. At least nothing too serious. because as much as I love him, being sick
Yes.
is an ill effect. But
But it's one he's somewhat accustomed to, no?
yeah, so is just a little, he's just a little bit stupid. That said, he's not so stupid that he's not going to mention what he's found to others. Uh, I imagine he probably lets Jubilee know first because Jubilee does live under the same roof that he does, but
Mm-hmm.
some way or another he does inform all the people on the list that Yuura provided him with about the mirror that he took. And namely, that it seems to let him, in a way, traverse ink space in his dreams at night.
Mm-hmm.
And he leaves out the ill effects of the emotional devastation and being ill upon drowning because that's not important. And also, they tell him to cut that shit out. So,
I shake this boy.
yeah, he does deserve to be shaken for that.
They
Uh,
would tell you to cut that shit out because it's making you sick, you goober.
yeah. That said, he does try and be a little bit smarter with his investigations. If something leaves him poor off the next day, then he is going to either stay to the more comfortable zones or he's going to put the mirror away so that way he can have a normal night's rest. After all,
Mm-hmm.
pre Crystal's Overblot, there's not too much of a need for him to push himself to the limit or hurry. And
Mm-hmm.
though he's determined to keep this lead, he's not so desperate as to really hurt himself in pursuing it.
Mm-hmm.
He has some level of smarts.
That he does. And so the next time he goes in, the next time he tries to do that deeper bit of investigation, he has a plan. When next you go down through the glass surface of the ocean, you first focus your thoughts on the center of the spiral, on the middle of everything, on the place you know your target to be. Down from there. Down and down and down. Quickly, before you can remember you need to breathe. The coffin in the murky silt is right where Jubilee said it would be, half buried now in the muck. 6 locks set into its golden filigree rather than just one. That's fine. You don't need a key. You simply sink through it into the grave that is not meant for you, not ready for you to find. Not quite yet. But your curiosity is an insatiable thing. Were only the you that is not you that sings its insight to you in this place could use that, what a feast you would be. But as you are, at least it can sympathize. At least it can understand this feeling of hungering, insatiable curiosity not so unlike its own endless desire. One seeks to know, one seeks to grow, and both are hungry. You understand each other. So you are let through to the haunted house. Because it is haunted now. The trappings of a gilded cage worn away, eaten up by cobwebs, by dust, by ruin. By the rain that drips through ceiling beams, by books scattered off the shelves, photos on the walls with faces that warp and shift and distort themselves as it gets harder and harder to remember who they were. Wind rolls down the chimney and out the mouth of the empty fireplace. Streaks of ink stain the walls like tears, places where the servants' hands have tried to set things to right only to mar them further. It's aware of what it is now. A prison, not a home, not a place of rest. And the prisoner is unhappy, as prisoners often are. He lays where he always has, in the room made to hold him. Down the hall with its splintering and loose floorboards that don't quite fit together right anymore. The wallpaper streaked with ink that's leaked through the seam between the warped ceiling and the walls. You drift through that hallway, but the cracked and broken door crossed over with its numerous overlapping and interlocking chains. The dream ends, and then you wake up.
Boy. I imagine he's long since learned that he cannot affect things in ink space through his dreams, though he probably still did try on instinct.
Mm-hmm.
Just because he's Camille and he has to try. That
I love
said,
him. He wouldn't be himself if he didn't.
yeah, a very determined sort. So, the moment he wakes up, this time he is much more ready. He has his notebook and pen already laid out to minimize the chance of him forgetting between waking up and getting his thoughts down before they slip away. So, the moment his eyes open, he's reaching over for that book and pen, and he's writing down everything. He goes from the biggest parts first, uh, such as the gilded locks and the fact that it's taking the form of a haunted house. Something that may have been made to look comfortable once, but no longer is trying. And then he gets down into the details, trying to write down the trails of ink before he could forget, the blurry paintings, which he's not sure if they were truly unrecognizable or if it's his mind already slipping at this point. But he can't dwell on that too much because there's still stuff to write. And most importantly, he's learned that this can work. So he also writes down the method he used to get down further.
Mm-hmm. I love your boy. He's so clever.
Glad it is his job.
The next. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
He knows it's important, and so he is trying to be as thorough as possible because if what Professor said is correct, they're not really going to have the luxury of time once uh, things pop off, so to speak.
Indeed.
So, if they can have any sort of leg up, any sort of prediction, then that is all the more help in making sure that they can get Yuura out of this alive.
Indeed. And any help is good help, right?
Mm-hmm. He has something that lets him help and lets him find new information so he can feel like he's not just catching up anymore. He's actually making strides forward and helping everyone along with him.
I love him.
Help, I'm glad.
Doing so well. Okay. The next important thing he sees comes the night before Crystal's overblot. You know Crystal is going to overblot before anyone else does. You see when she hits her breaking point. See the servant standing in front of her door with its stained glass paneling and pitch black petrified wood, counting the 4 locks, 1 it can open, 3 to be guests. You see the way the light shifts, streaming through those glass panes. You see when her key resolves into its final shape. You hear the crackle of frost and feel the cold winds of winter whooshing past you, a chill going down your spine. And you know what it means. It doesn't surprise you to hear your brother is going with Aurelia and the professor to check on Crystal the next day.
It does not surprise him at all. And he's almost tempted to follow along. Almost. But he is not the Camille who would have rushed along headlong even if he knew for certain he had no place. Because he can very easily count to 3. 3 locks, 3 helpers. And with his brother amongst them, he knows for a fact that they will be able to handle things.
Hmm.
So, though he's a bit worried, he does gladly see Leo off and probably gracefully does not mention this one to the others because he loves Jubilee so much. He knows that Jubilee cares so much. And he does not think that Jubilee would be able to sit back knowing like he is.
No. The trick of the Oracle is learning when to keep your damn mouth shut.
Yeah. Hill is definitely there's definitely a little bit of a wry smile at some point during all this because oh boy, he really is becoming some sort of seer, isn't he? God damn it. But
Oopsie doopsie.
oopsie doopsie.
You got a That's So Raven artifact.
Perhaps. Uh, but yeah, he's definitely still a bit on edge um, until he sees that Crystal is okay. Um, he's relieved once he does see that because until then he's probably just been trying to pass the time. A, a bit like even if you know, for example, like a doctor is going to help your friend or family or pet or something, you're still nervous the whole time.
Mm-hmm. It always sucks to be the one left in the waiting room.
Yeah. Though he's much better about it than he used to be, in that even though he's so very on edge, it's not driving him insane. Though he definitely does make sure to keep the mirror on him when he goes to bed that night as well. Uh,
Yeah.
Especially because I'm not sure when Professor tells everyone, but if Professor told them, uh, if Professor informed everyone before like the day of Crystal's Overblot,
Yeah.
yeah, there's no way.
Yep. You use the mirror again the night after. Of course you do. You have to. As far as you know, it's your only lead, but what you find is disquieting. You find yourself standing halfway up the stairs, looking down at that glassy floor far below, the spiral that betrays this place's purpose so glaring from this angle. and yet it is somehow the thing the least of your attention. You've seen Grim Crowley before. You were at the interview. You heard enough of his voice to recognize it, but it is only the voice you recognize. Here, that voice belongs to something that is no longer a man. A towering figure, his back turned to you, constructed at all wrong angles with too many joints and too long limbs, made of hundreds upon thousands of keys, melted and twisted into one another. Animated by strings pulling in on themselves from the inside, and cloaked in tar-black lace and feathers that shimmer with the same oil-slick colors of the sea. From somewhere in its chest comes the sound of fluttering feathered wings. He wears a mask in the shape of a bird's skull, and the words that ring out from beneath it come out in the haunting, sharp and hollow chimes of a glass harmonica, their rhythm set by a crow's cawing, musical and self-satisfied words in Sylvan. "There now, servant, you took your time with that," he croons over his creation, tilting the servant's head up with one clawed, warped metal finger. "So cruel of you to make a promise you cannot keep. But I suppose that was the prefect's nature." It says nothing, just looks up at him from behind its blank white mask. He laughs, and all the world rings with the sound. "It hardly matters, does it? In the end, you returned as you were meant to. I shall not hold your hesitance against you, for I am the most gracious of men." Again, it says nothing. It does not blink. It does not pretend to breathe. It stands, and it stares, and it waits for orders. "Oh, yes, yes, very well, very well," the thing that is Grim Crowley sighs. "In my kindness, I will not subject you to the continuation of this existence. To live without the fulfillment of purpose is the greatest of agonies, for a thing like you." Those hands made of warped and bent and broken keys layered over and over and over each other. So many people who should have been helped, should have been saved, but had their lives, their personhood stolen to become a part of this. Wrap around the servant, hiding it from view. "Rest now, servant," he instructs, with the musicality of a lullaby. "Rest until the day our dear prefect finally accepts what is to come of him. Rest, and some day know no more." When he lifts those hands away, the servant lays on the ground, a heap of chalk pieces, only mostly holding together in the shape of a person. It should be sad. In a way it is. It will never fulfill its purpose, never see its function completed. Crowley hums, shaking his head with a rattle of keys and chains, before those massive clawed hands grab onto the staircase at your side, pulling up and out to sea, as the thing that is Grim Crowley condenses itself, pulls itself together into the shape that's closer to how he appears outside this place. A man, well dressed, put together, and utterly insufferable, who hums as he ascends the stairs. You do not follow him. Instead, you fall. You fall, and instead of hitting the ground, you go right through. You pierce the center again, and find yourself seeing a glimpse beyond that door. Watching as, around a glass coffin, hundreds of chains constrict and melt together, laying over and over and over each other, and melting into one another to form a shell of silver and iron, the one trapped inside far too deeply asleep to protest. And then you wake up.
Oh boy. Camille wakes up and he wants to be angry. He wants to mourn. He wants to make sure that this stupid fucking bird gets justice. But he can't let himself linger on that. Because if he were to linger on just that, then he would forget about the important things. And right now, he really can't afford to forget the important things. So he scrubs at his eyes and picks up the pocketbook, as he has done quite a few times by now, and writes down what he saw with a shaky hand. Writes down the servant's death, how Crowley looked, and what it meant. And he writes down the shell that was formed around the coffin, because that is truly something very important. Is that's not going to be easy to get through.
No, no, it's not.
Especially notes down how the servant was unable to complete its purpose. And with as he writes down a brief description of Crowley turning back from this horrendous monster formed of keys and failed lives into a man. Once all the important information is down, he does let himself feel that anger. Because he did already accept that the servant was going to essentially die. Even if technically the servant was only a construct, they were still something with thoughts and feelings, even if those feelings weren't expressed or very prominent. The fact that they were was enough to make them something alive in Camille's mind. And so, even if he did accept that it was always going to become chalk once more, there's a sort of cruelty in the fact that they weren't even allowed to fulfill the one thing they were made to do. They weren't allowed to go out on their own terms, but rather to be disposed of at Crowley's whim. And that just makes him so, so angry at the injustice of it. And he makes a decision right then and there that he was already determined to make sure that Crowley wouldn't be able to succeed in his plans with Yuura, but now it's become something even stronger. It's a drive, a almost a promise, because he is not going to let Crowley hurt anyone else. Not again.
Man.
He is a detective, and he is even more specifically a homicide detective, making sure that people who died too soon receive justice is something of his life's purpose. That said, He is going to need a little bit of time before he can properly tell the group what happened, if only because he knows what the reaction is going to be. Because normally, with new information, he tends to tell Jubilee first, being that Jubilee is the easiest and most readily accessible and able to help Camille make sure that he is sounding sane as he explains these dreams.
Mm-hmm.
But this time, I think Jubilee might be the last person he tells. If only because he knows how Jubilee is going to react, and he knows that that's going to take a lot of time, and
Yeah,
it's just going to make everyone feel more hurt. So,
it's gonna hit hard.
yeah. So, at the very least, he can practice that conversation with others first. As there's no avoiding the ringing of the clock tower when it comes to telling Jubilee, but at least he can put it off a few more hours.
Yeah. How long do you think it takes before he goes back?
I think I'll have to roll something because on a 1, he gets so sucked into work that he forgets, or perhaps unconsciously doesn't feel prepared to return. On a 2, he's able to get enough of himself together to at least try. So he does not go back that night, but rather the next night. Uh, Probably curses a little bit in Force and Onion when he realizes uh, that midnight has passed. It's just so
Oh,
darn
honey.
early when you're a night owl.
It really is.
But it's okay.
He goes
It's
back the next
fine.
night.
Yeah, and I believe there's actually something that happens on day 3 involving a certain detective, if I remember correctly, the timeline.
Yep. Which honestly might explain why Camille forgot about dream magic bullshit that night.
Yeah, because this is a day that he learns something is happening to his father.
Yeah.
Something very, very bad. But thankfully, they do know how to fix it. But they also have no time to do it afterwards. So his already pretty busy schedule is getting even more busy, and he has enough brain cells to realize he is going to need sleep before they work on getting Tome back.
Yeah.
But at the very least, getting rest won't mean that he has to stop his investigation.
Yep. Do you mind if I continue?
Oh, yes, go ahead.
Because I know that that last one hit pretty heavy, and this is getting into uh, the next one is the longest one and is also the one that's probably going to hit the hardest.
I am good. Uh, Thankfully, I think Camille is prepared for even more fuck shit tonight.
So it takes him a bit to get the time, but he comes back. And quiet. Night after night, you return. You watch, you wait, you wonder. The servant, in its pieces on the floor, does not move until the night that it does. Until the night you arrive to find the servant pushing itself up off of the glassy black ground. Eyes agleam with vibrant violet glow. Buoyancy is defiance, and violet is activity. Violet is the inverse of gold. Violet is something here that refused to die. It doesn't get far. It moves slowly, jerkily, like it's still getting used to its limbs. It was always controlled from the outside, but now its strings are cut. Something has grabbed them from the inside, making it move the same way as Crowley, but with none of the grace. Of course, that gets his attention. He stands at the base of the stairs, where he had not been mere moments before. "Servant," he calls out, "I believe I commanded you to be at rest." "Yeah." The servant's mouth does not move. The voice comes from somewhere inside its throat. Clear, breathless, and burning. "Lucky for me, your servant isn't here right now. And as your unwilling sacrifice, I'm not inclined to take a message." "Ah," he sighs. "Prefect. Present." Servant, puppeteered by the one who had been forced to give it a mind, pivots on its heels to look its creator in the eyes. Burning violet and sickly golden yellow. And for a moment they stand in silence, before Crowley chuckles. "Well, Prefect," he asks, raising his hands, "what do you intend to do now? I do hope you are not under the impression that you're permitted to leave here. Or do you intend to once again waste your time trying to leave without my permission?" He smiles, cocking his head. "We both know how well that ends up for you, and I am a kind man. I take no pleasure in robbing you of yourself further than I must." "Think you'll give me permission?" retorts the voice of Yuura Audiens, crossing the servant's arms with clumsy movements. "Once you hear what I have to say, you'll realize you'd have to be stupid not to. And surely one as great as you isn't stupid enough to lose everything you worked for because you declared victory too early, are you, Headmaster?" Another laugh, the ring of that glass harp reverberating through the space as Crowley strides across the room. All confidence, all class, but you can see from the puff of his feathers he's on edge. Tense, rattled. He didn't plan for this, didn't expect this to happen, and now he's being warned of an oversight he can't account for. He can play it off, but the edge is still on his words, as he stands over the reanimated servant, hands behind his back, bending slightly at the waist to look at creation and, through it, his sacrifice in the eye. "And what, pray tell," he asks, "do you have to say that could be so important, Prefect?" "I'm still alive." "Clearly." Crowley smiles indulgently. "You always were stubborn, but we've established you can't get out of here without my permission, and no," Yuura repeats, "you don't get it. I'm still alive, which means you can still fail." Crowley's smile wavers, and that's the opening. That is the crack into which he can sink his fangs, poisoning with doubt, playing to the ego. "You've gotten everything you wanted," Prefect insists. "Everything you did all this for. Your status, your power, your reputation. You've just managed to get them all back. Archmage Grim Crowley, the greatest of the greats, acknowledged at last. You don't want that to go away, do you?" "It won't." Crowley scowls, brushing the lapels of his cloak. "My plan has been successful. Your plan is incomplete. Yoda smiles. And it will stay incomplete until I'm dead. Then please do us both a favor, the Fae snaps, and lay down and die already. You know you are only delaying the inevitable. You cannot escape on your own. You don't want me to do that. And why wouldn't I? Because if I die here, it's all been for nothing. Silence. This all came from you, didn't it? You put it on me so someone else could complete the ritual because you know if you did it, it'd kill you. And what good is making things right if you can't enjoy the rewards that come of it? You need me dead. More than that, you need the loop closed. You need the ritual completed. You need someone to kill me. Again, silence. A silence of realization this time. You good?
I'm so sorry, that was my dog. He is also good, by the way. He's just, playing with his toys.
Okay, scrolling back a bit.
Yeah, sorry.
You need me dead. More than that, you need the loop closed. You need the ritual completed. You need someone to kill me. Again, silence. A silence of realization this time. He's right. Crowley will never admit it, but if you don't close the loop, if this doesn't end with my death as a result of my overblood, it die with me, it just snaps back to you, and you lose everything. And what are you arguing? Crowley falls easily into his more monstrous form, hands slamming into the ground on either side of his servant with a sound like 1,000 forks scraping over glass. That I should just let you go so you can be killed? Exactly. I knew someone as clever as you would understand, Headmaster. Play to the ego. Keep him off balance. His pride is the crack in the armor. Pry at it. Crack him open. Find something you can use. You wouldn't ask for that. But I am. You're mortal. You don't want to die. Of course I don't, but it's not like you gave me a choice in the matter. I've been dead a long time. You killed me the minute you put this curse in me. I don't want it to hurt anyone else. Silence. Skepticism. Speculation. And silence. A reliance on misconceptions. Crowley has always thought of his wicked flower more noble than Yuura ever really was. The air is heavy as Crowley turns the bluff over and over in his head, trying to make sense of it. I have people willing to do it. The detective and the showman, yes, they seemed very eager to let you complete your purpose. I have others. The servant made a lot of connections. You were wise to give it my people skills. I doubt they'd be any more willing. Not at first, no. He's quick to agree. But aren't you renowned for your silver tongue, your persuasive nature? I do have a way with words. And you haven't met these ones yet. Surely you can convince them, can't you? Silence. Contemplation. A challenge, Crowley decides. I will not stop you from leaving, if you have accepted your purpose and only wish to ensure it is properly completed. In my graciousness, I will allow you to assuage your own worries. No response, waiting for the other penny to drop. But I will not assist you. I wouldn't expect you to— Quiet. Quiet now, Prefect, and listen to me. One of those massive metal hands raises skyward, gesturing towards the disk in the sky that is the transmission point. You have no power over this place. You will have to climb every step yourself, dragging this shell you've chosen along with you. And you will have to make your own bridge. I will not send you out on your own. Ascend and find your way out, and I will permit you to bring these chosen friends of yours to me, so I may convince them to see reason, and allow you the peace of death. Fail, and you will fall. You will retreat to your resting place, and you will go quietly into the eternal night. Deal. And then you wake up.
Man. Yeah, Camille is once more putting aside his own emotions and thought on the matter because he simply has to write down what happened. Like before, what happened last night is far too important to allow himself to slip in details. Um, just as he did before, because he likely forgot to mention that Crowley's voice has a sound of a glass harp. The same glass harp that sounds whenever a construct is broken, if I remember correctly.
It is a similar sound. Not exactly, but it is a very similar sound.
Mhm. And so this time he starts with amending last night's notes before he continues on because he knows, well, not last night, but you get what I mean.
The previous big events notes.
Yes. Because this time he can share good news. And sure, it's not exactly the greatest, and will perhaps need a little bit of preceding information. But though the servant is dead, at the very least, Yuura is not. And so he is going to write down the conversation as best as he can remember. That Yuura was able to pull himself together from the servant's remains, that Crowley's ego does seem to be the way to get him to lower his guard or perhaps play into what you need him to. And he writes down the particular nature of the deal and tries to use the specific words as much as he can, but like most dreams, the specifics tend to slip.
Yeah.
At the very least, he can write down the major points of the deal. That Yura is going to be making his way out, and it's going to take a very, very long time. But at the very least, it does give them the time they need to help with Tome. I think this time, much like usual, he does in fact tell Jubilee first. Because Jubilee probably really needs the information that his friend is very much still kicking. So he
Still
will.
kicking and mouthed off to a fae.
Yep. Still kicking in all the ways that matter. He'll go on to tell the rest of them, I believe. At this point, they would likely have a group chat, so he'll fill them in there. But the day is reserved for Tome, but the night can still be for checking in, because if Jubilee is anything like him, and Jubilee is a lot like him, he'd want an update. Even if nothing substantial happens, he would want an update. And Camille is more than happy to give him one.
Yeah. I hold him so gentle.
It's a little guy.
He's just a little guy, and we're subjecting him to the horrors.
It's fine. He, at the very least, is very resilient to the horrors. It's this is this is in his wheelhouse. He can handle it. Um, Also, I have not mentioned it before, but since I imagine he doesn't really have a form in ink space, it's more like the mental thought of what your form would be.
Mm-hmm.
I imagine that he's as a fun little thing for me because he's a druid. As he
Mm-hmm.
explores ink space, he's probably not always in human form. Sometimes Sometimes he takes the form of a cat, sometimes a mouse, sometimes a lizard on the wall, or a butterfly, or perhaps something else. Just pretty much always something small and not to be noticed.
Holds him.
He is still in a stoop.
You
And
so smart, so sneaky.
he doesn't need to be sneaky, but brain space is in the quite literally fly on a wall mindset.
Sometimes butterfly on a wall.
Yeah. We may continue if you wish.
Yep, because we've got the last one. Every time after that, it's the same sight. The same view of the servant's slow, methodical, arduous ascent. Step after step after step after step. Eyes forward, slightly up. Breaths slow and measured to set the rhythm of motion. Silence. Grim determination. Step after step after step after step. But one night, and one night only, that silence is broken. I know you're here. I can feel you watching me, even if I can't see or hear you. If I had to guess, you're probably Camille. I guess that's what the mirror does, huh? Thank you for being here. It really does make me feel stronger to know there's someone waiting for me. And I'm sorry if you've had to see anything too unpleasant. And the silence falls again. And given time, you wake up.
Phil knows that. Well, he is certainly surprised that Yura can feel him, but he is grateful for that. Because at the very least, Yura knows that they're still waiting, and he hasn't been forgotten. Because when you have to do a long, lonely trek where the only choice you have is to pull yourself up, it's good to know that there's someone on the other side. And even though he knows that Yura likely can't see or hear him, does still probably as either a butterfly or a little sparrow perch on your shoulder. You try and say, yes, we're still here. We're all waiting for you. Please come back soon.
Man. I think when he does feel that, he sort of just sets his hand on his own shoulder next to where he can feel Camille's presence. Smiles. Doesn't say anything, but Camille can tell he really appreciates that.
You love you were trying to have a moment.
Screw your moment. This toy must be decimated.
Okay. Oh no, he's going after my hand right now. Alright, Iggy, sit. 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 Iggy, come. Iggy, sit. Sit. Down. No, no, no. Down. Iggy, down. Down. Good boy. Okay. I have him distracted. um, but yeah, I think on any subsequent nights, even though they can't really have a conversation, Camille does still try and sit on Yuura's shoulder just to be with him for a little bit. So that way he doesn't have to be alone the whole journey.
Man, I need a minute. Emotions.
You
Yeah.
give me emotions, I give you emotions.
Damn. Fucked up. But yeah, that is how any trips through dreams to ink space work for the next solid bit. I think the timeline that makes most sense is for about a month. And what happens when it changes? Well, we'll see that in something coming soon.
That we will.
Yes. Thank you so much, Fletch, for recording this with me. This is a delight, and this is so much more efficient the way I was planning to do this, which was just to release it as a little fic. This is so much more mentally pleasing. So thank you very much.
Happy to help. It was very fun.
I'm glad you had fun. Thank you for your boy being feral and taking a mirror that I did not expect him to try and take.
Yeah.
For those who didn't get to listen to yesterday's session, there was a 50-50 shot that thing wasn't going to be taken with him, and yet somehow he managed to get it.
Somehow. And because of that, we had this.
We did! Alright. But with everything covered, unless there's anything else you want to hit?
I don't believe so. I think I will note that on the traveling with Yuura a bit, I think, and I'm mostly just saying it in recording because I know several party members will be checking out the recording. If anyone asked for the mirror during that time period, I think Camille would lend it to them because,
Yeah.
it's not fair if he's the only one who gets to help Yuura on his journey.
Man. Can I give you a preemptive inspiration point for the finale or something? Goddamn.
It's fine. Sharing is caring, and I also think it would be sweet if everyone got to have a chance.
Yeah. That's really cute. Fuck. Okay.
Alright.
Let's say goodbye to our listeners. Bye-bye, listeners!
Bye!